going to start with Bluffton. Town of Bluffton, we have visitbluffton.org. I'd like to note that became an independent website from March of 2021. And from that, we had several website visits, or what we call hits. And that was over 119,000. But we like to also measure how many went and clicked to find a partner business. And that was at 48,000, just above that. And those are handshakes out to our partners at a 6.4 partner referral rate. We know that all things really start and end with social media, and that's a good thing. We have to think globally in terms of how our consumers digest destination or travel and tourism in general. And so we like to make sure, and we'll get to a slide later on that speaks to this, that we have several different pieces kind of firing at the same time to ensure, as we know, someone might be looking at their phone, they might be reading something on their iPad, watching TV. But we have seen in trends that more social media is taking precedence, that quick little snippet of information that people can slide through. And so we have built a lot of strategy around that, and we're seeing it work here with over, in total of all of our social media channels, our total followers is up 96.6% year over year. How many people are seeing that? Over 10.5 million, and that growth is incredible at 33%. And a lot of people not right in the road at that point, so they were really digesting a lot of things online. And then we still skew a bit more female in terms of our audience. Just slightly changed, low variance from last year, from 2020 into 2021, but still a strong female audience digesting travel and tourism, Southern Beaufort County in general. When you look at heads and beds, we look at that hotel component, and that occupancy was up 35% year over year. Really looking at that strong RevPAR number at up 114% with the rate of 224, which is wonderful. Switching gears over to the Visit the BuzzFeed site, we have, again, strong sessions and people who have visited the website at 28% up year over year, and going out to our partners, again, at 22.7%, again, shaking those hands of partners and businesses within that area. Again, some strong social presence. That social sessions, tongue twister for Monday, was up 9% with 11,000. And looking at engagements down slightly, but really we're working to build those followers. So throughout the year, our strategy kind of flexes, as we work to kind of shake out and get as many followers, and we want to retain them. So in this effort, we were looking to engage more people and bring them on to following us. And so that's where you should strengthen the sessions numbers, but slightly down in engagements. And then those partner links, they're linking out from social up 55%. As I mentioned earlier, we stood visitbluffton.org, which is wonderful. We're seeing great traction there. We'll be near contributing to compare year over year, which is going to be exciting momentum for us as we've embarked on having this stand alone, which is wonderful. For that, we worked really hard prior to launching that site to have the assets needed to not only push through social, but to embed onto the website and use platforms such as YouTube to push them through. So we're going to see that explore Bluffton, South Carolina. And we have the video series that has done extremely well for us. And that is really an opportunity for us to showcase our locals and tell that local story, because we know how important storytelling is. And so we started with our initial series, and we'll go back for more and continue to build on that foundation of this platform that's doing so well for us. I'm going to come back to that at the end, because I'm very excited about that one as well, but I want to spend a bit more time on it. But the dedicated official Bluffton vacation planner, so that is something now we're in. I'm currently speaking, we're in our second year of County One, had our first ever standalone Town of Bluffton guide, which also includes the DeFusky extra, as well as all of our business listings for DeFusky as well. And it was so well received, and we're in our second year of that, and we've increased our quantity size based on demand, and it continues to be one of our top performers in terms of collateral. Going back to economic impact report, So the town of Bluffton has never had a standalone economic impact report. And working with the College of Charleston, we were able to, for over a course of a year, track those that were put out that they were seeking travel on X dates. We would follow up with them, several weeks after they had said they were going to visit, and we would serve a survey to say how was your trip and stay engaged with them, and we were able to officially put forward that economic impact report, which is wonderful to see. And you'll see that as we check some of those findings and really pull them through this year's plan. And we'll only have this to build upon as we further understand who this traveler is and become further engaged with that platform, because it's wonderful insights to have in terms of what's your demographic, how old, where are they coming from, so on and so forth. So that was included as well for your reference. In 2021, we had several opportunities with media. We had some opportunities starting as early as January of 21. That was for Southern Living. And you can see some efforts of that here. And we also were in their April issue, which is the Southwest issue. And then also had a wonderful integration with Gardening Gun. And I love the Gardening Gun one because it's a great example of how we take a very singular effort of Gardening Gun being within a digital program and built upon it to have not only the Gardening Gun assets, which were digital and social and e-news, we also worked with one of their influencers, which was Benita Aspen, who came into town to attend one of their core particular events, which was the Historic Arts and Seafood Festival. She used her channels. She engaged with not only the event, but other businesses within the community. And they reposted and reshared. And so there were several different touch points along with our initiatives that followed and promoted the event as well. So it was a very deep integrated program, which I think served not only the town of Bluffton, but Southern Beaufort County as a whole so well. And we gained 53 new followers from it. But I think overall, the effort really gained so much more awareness for the destination, and we continue to look for those types of opportunities as we move forward. From a business lens, we worked with Southwest. As you all know, we launched Southwest Service out of Savannah International Airport, and part of their integration efforts into the community. We hosted a business event with key stakeholders. There was 30+ attendees, elected officials, and this is that montage on the blog. And it was really just to discuss how leaders within our community can ensure that their business and their patrons are aware of the service to take advantage of it. That's a really fun event. The Juneteenth promotion spoke and we shared that and promoted that. And we just spoke quickly about the historical and arts and seafood festival, which from an annual perspective is exciting, and we wish somebody would come to visit for that reason. Here is our 2021 official vacation planner for the town of Bluffton, with integrations of the Pesky, which had over 10,262 distributed. This is the video series that I talked shortly about just a bit ago, with over 18,000 impressions. Again, those are people that are not only seeing it, sharing it, liking it, and doing something with it. So it's really exciting to see that, and we will continue to build upon that. When you look at winners for public relations, again, earned inspired. These are not paid efforts, but these are people who are excited about the low country, excited about the town of Bluffton. They are talking about it, and that was over 456 mentions. That would be an adequate equivalent of 1,112,000. Oh, I'm wrong with that, excuse me. But the equivalent there that we would not pay for, that was value added to us based on the mentions that they picked up for us. So again, you can see Town and Country, Pure Wow, Forbes, and USA Today with 456 mentions, which was wonderful to see. When you look at the impressions, just so you're not wrong by that number, if any of those stories were syndicated or brought through to another platform, those were those impressions that are captured as well. So it could have easily been on one outlet, but then picked up on some syndicated to another, and those are all counted as eyeballs or impressions for the story. When you're looking forward in 23, knowing how well we did for 21, what are we set forth to do as the destination marketing organization for Southern Beaufort County? We will look to again focus on arts and culture, historic registered designations. We obviously know we have our Hague Point assets and the lighthouse there that continues to be of interest and excitement for many writers and others who are visiting. Local culture, artists, but also the quality of life, right? And we want to bring forward that unspoiled nature and ensuring that people can, at all levels of interest in tourism, can find something that they can tie themselves to and look forward to not just coming one time. We want to create that repeat opportunity with our visitors and bring them here, and hopefully they'll call it home one day. And so what we've learned from understanding our visitor a bit more from that economic impact is, who is this person traveling? She skews a bit more female, as we mentioned. They're an affluent traveler at 150,000 household income. They have 52% of undergraduate degree or higher, and they take 2 to 4 trips per year, staying on average about 4 nights. And so when you look at that, it's such great information to have, but then how do we become a bit more particular on what their interests are? And this is where we use some of our insights from the website, as well as our digital and social ads, to serve them what we know they're interested in. Family travel. If they like to travel, we call it snowbirds in that off-season time frame. Maybe there's an activity or recreation that they really enjoy, whether it be out on the water, or if they love to play a particular sport, golf, so on and so forth. Maybe they just take a quick weekend away, serving up more of the air service, but also the drive markets. We're steeped in having an awesome opportunity to showcase tons of different art, culture, and history. We want to make sure that we're showcasing those itineraries and making sure that we're connecting with that type of traveler as well. And then culinary. We continue to grow on the culinary side, and we have quite the opportunity here to emphasize how local and special our culinary efforts are. So again, we take what we have from on the bigger side of knowing who they are, but also what they like to do. And we continue to carve out more dedicated insights and messaging to them. Oops, sorry. And then how do we go out and about to reach them? So we cast a broad net, and we pull them through, and we qualify them along the way. So if you think about that map of that casting of the net, and you throw it out, as you pull it in, you're kind of fishing through and weeding out those that are, maybe we don't know if we want a destination experience that has this or that. But as we kind of pull that net back in, we're able to bring them closer into what Southern Beaufort County has to offer. We have them qualify, and then we bring in some intent, and then we convert them. And what is a conversion for us? It's that handshake out to the partner, whether that be a hotel accommodation, whether that be a restaurant or an excursion opportunity and partner, that really tells them that, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this, I can't wait to be in Southern Beaufort County for my next trip. But as we spoke about earlier, coming through to how a visitor now transacts, or a potential visitor. And we like to think of ourselves, and we're thinking through this, but it is become quite the trend as we kind of work through COVID 2020 and 2021, is that we are now looking at travel and tourism and a very noisy market, in the sense that the consumer has a ton of things going on, right? They might be at home in front of their iPad, the TV's on, they have their phone in front of them, they're getting served, traditional mail, or have a magazine in front of them. And so our marketing efforts, though we've taken this approach for quite some time, it's how competitive are we being in all of these different segments to ensure that our brand voice is top of mind. So think about when you're searching on Google and you put in,
historic destination, great culinary spots to travel to. We want to make sure that Southern Beaufort County really comes to that top query within the top 3 to 5 that are being shown to you, whether that be through an image, through a partnership, or through a ranking and a listing. And so we want to make sure that we have those things, whether it be a blog that's served to you, maybe it's an ad that we're placing on digital marketing, maybe something on the public relations front was brought forward. And so we want to really make sure that there is all of that kind of firing at the same time. And that's why we use this gear slide to really visually show how in today's world, it is a noisy environment. We have more destinations that are coming back online post-COVID, and we want to make sure that our voice is top of mind. And so we're quickly running into what would be our 2023 goals. And we took a different approach in the way that we would showcase these to you. I thought it was important that we look at kind of the overarching goal for this coming fiscal year. And what our responsibility is to bring that, taking that funnel slide, is to bring qualified visitation to the destination. And so when we think about that, it's those that are really thinking and considering heavily based on their efforts to date, what they've shown us on social, what they've shown us on their web interactions, that they are thinking about Southern Beaufort County, they are wanting to travel, there is intent there. And we want to bring them through to the website, and we want them to shake hands to our businesses and partners in the community. So knowing that that is our overarching goal for 23, how are we going about that? We have 5 goals. We have 1 goal, 5 strategies and tactics. So the first strategy is to build brand awareness and support qualified visitation to the destination among our target markets. And so we're continually looking at who is visiting our website, where are they from, what are they doing, and how are they doing it. And so knowing that we are looking at that, we want to serve based on what we're seeing their efforts in outreach, which is through digital marketing, traditional ad placements, social media, user-generated content. And what that means is taking on social media, if you and I were in the destination, visiting somewhere, and we took a picture and it influenced someone else to explore more about where you just were. And we use that concept when we're not only when all of our visitors are in Southern Beaufort County, we use that to serve on our social to inspire them as well. It's not us telling them, but it's the visitor themselves telling them that you need to check out this place. And then going back to public relations, really building up those media partnerships, again, for that earned media opportunity for those placements. Strategy number 2, drive discovery and exploration of the destination through deeper storytelling, culture, art, and history. So we know that those are key learnings of what not only the visitors are wanting to see, it is also a key goal of what the destination, Southern Beaufort County, that we've heard that you would like to see. So we want to continue to tell that deeper story, tie deeper into that cultural piece, the great art and history that is here. And we'll do that again by serving up those ads, paid social media, making sure that we're optimized in all of our search. So when someone is searching, that we are served as an option. And again, user-generated content. No better way to show that people can do that themselves is seeing that another visitor has done that before them. We want to leverage a strategic mix of targeted methods to identify and reach the most qualified users. So again, in today's technology with what we have at our disposals, we can really go in and see what the consumer is doing. And so on the back end, we can see where they are, what area they're from, their household income, what their interests are, and we can target and really refine the messaging. So I would not serve visitor A, who is interested in outdoor excursions and culinary. I would not serve them something that has nothing to do with that, where, I would make sure that in that visitor, I would serve them just that information that they're interested in, that helping me ensure that if there is any want at all to travel to Southern Beaufort County, we have the things that they're interested in doing. Strategy number 4, we want to enhance our leisure and group business through qualified visitation. We work very hard on ensuring our email marketing list, that we have optimized all of our search efforts, both on SEM and SEO. We have worked very closely with all of our hotel partners to make sure that we have all of their insights available online as well as up front if someone were to call in. And we're in all the appropriate trade marketing platforms, so people who are thinking about business travel again know that we are an option. In strategy number 5 is create an understanding and respect for the delicate ecosystem of the destination. As we continue to become more popular as a destination, we want to ensure those that visit have the same love for the destination as we do, as the community members. And so as a community member of Southern Beaufort County, we want to make sure that our visitors feel the same way. So it's connecting them with our delicate ecosystem and educating them that, you know, things that we see every day and that we love are protected as well and respected by our visitors. So there is many efforts that we have to, again, storytell and get that information out. We've included our proposed budget for your review. And I'm happy to go back to that slide if we want to, but that would conclude my presentation for today on behalf of our organization.
Great, thank you, Ms. Parisi. If you can go back just one slide, because I don't think we had that information in our backup documentation.
Okay, no
and let's go ahead and is there any questions from anyone online from council or Ms. Howard? Anyone have any questions for Ms. Parisi? All right, I don't see anyone asking questions. One question that I've got, and probably goes to staff, I'll probably ask this for everybody today, is so is the Hilton Head Bluffton Chamber up to date with everything we've asked them for and all the information we're supposed to get with regards to what the requirements are as a DMO? I kind of put you on the spot asking that question, so.
We will make sure.
All right, so I'm gonna ask the same question for everybody else that comes up today. So just to make sure, because again, as a council and as the finance in before me with Mr. Hervishon and Mr. Passman, we've always trying to get more and more transparent and trying to ask for more things and have more things. So every year we kind of try to, make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So as far as I know, we're good to go.
We are good to go. The DMO allocations, I believe, were established in the ATAX ordinances, and those are percentages that are automatic. So we will verify that the amount on the screen here is the lines up with their allocation based on the ATAX ordinances.
Perfect. Great. Well, I think you got off the hook easy, Ms. Pernice. There's no questions for you. Great presentation. Thank you for being here today and bringing that to us. And Mr. Deal, thank you for being online as well. Great presentation as usual. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity.
All right, let's move on then. Mr. Williams, you're up next. We've got number 8, discussion and presentation of year-to-date financial statements for fiscal year 2022.
Good afternoon, Chairman. How you doing today?
Thank you.
I'll put the PowerPoint on. Go ahead. Put it on slide view if you could. Okay. I was instructed that we needed to not have UNC graduates on these slides anymore, that they'd be preferably to be Duke Blue Devil. But anyway, I had Michael Jordan, who I would consider the greatest of all time. We've had a lot of stuff going on.
That picture is not county administrator.
I've gotten some very funny emails about that today. But anyways, I'm formatting this a little bit different today. We've had a lot going on. I just wanted to hit you the financial highlights for March and April. We did purchase the dowling lots for $1.9 million, which is adjacent to the federal courthouse, which will be used for our parking lots for the sheriff's office when they open there. We had a premium payout, and that was a lot of work. That was I would have to say, a 2-department We relied heavily on Scott Marshall's people to come up with a lot of the facts and the figures as far as who worked what month and how it went. The maximum payout was $3,000 for each employee. The total was $4.2 million with $3 million coming from ARPA and 1.2 coming out from the general fund. It covered 1,294 Beaufort County employees. That's underneath this roof, as well as 321 firemen and other employees from Shelton, Burton, Lays Island, St. Helena, Fripp Island, Bluffton, and the Fusky fire departments. That was we discussed things in here. We don't really realize how big a lift that is. But that was a really big lift by my department and human resources. I just wanted to thank everybody for everything they did. Also, y'all implemented a 5% COLA for the county employees, which was in our first paycheck in May. And we're also paying out several fire districts there, the difference between their 5% increase also. But I wanted to thank y'all for the employees of Beaufort County and the firemen of Beaufort County, because y'all did a lot for us in a very short period of time. And I wanted to recognize that. And I also wanted to thank Scott Marshall, all his staff, Emily and Catherine, and then my staff who headed it up would be Denise and Valerie and Sue Simpson for those payouts. But they did a fantastic job, and it was good. So the next slide, this is a little different than what we normally do. I want to we always break down expenses by department, and I kind of wanted to show you as a piece of pie where everything's going. And so the 62% or the 61% you can see is personnel services, which is all our salaries, wages, overtime, FICA, Medicare, and related employee benefits. That's the biggest piece of our pie right there. The second biggest piece would be that 15%, which would be purchase services. And there's a lot of different things that can go into purchase services, or professional fees, printing, postage, training, maintenance contracts, and dues and subscriptions. So they're kind of all over the place. The other really big piece of that pie is that 10%, which is subsidies to others. And that would be our subsidy to TCL and USCB, which is about 2.4 million, and our subsidies for indigent care for Beaufort Memorial Hospital and Beaufort Jasper Comp Health. And then also what goes through that particular line item would be our transfer to the solicitor, which is about almost $2 million. But that was just a different kind of way of looking at stuff. I kind of beat y'all over the head with the same information. I just thought I'd change it up a little bit. Here's something that y'all are kind of used to seeing. Can you go to the next slide, please? And this is our year-to-date revenues. We're right now at about 98% of total revenues. You know, we're looking for an overage, which is a surplus, which we've talked about going forward. We're currently, even though the ad valorem's budget, we're above budget. We're expecting to collect more there. We're only at about 97.5% collected there. I confirmed that with the treasurer. And then our other really high one too is the charges for services. And that's still the registers of deeds. They're about $1.1 million above where they really projected them to be. But anyways, that's kind of that. And then can you go to the next slide? This is similar, the expenditures. We're currently at 80.41%, which we're slightly down, but when you're talking in hundreds of millions of dollars, that's about $4 million less than where we should be. There are several initiatives that we've taken with the use of surplus and use of fund balance that we're going to try and get that number close to actual budget, if not over. But the two big ones that are the highest that are actually above budget would be the public health and the public welfare. The public health is doing a lot of that is the indigent care is in there, and all 4 quarters of that has already been paid out. And the public welfare has the Human and Social Services and the Human Services Alliance, and they have been paid out 100% already. So that kind of skews that number too. So that's really all that I have for this report. With the source material, there's details in there like you normally have for departments and budget variances and everything like that. that's in the back. You know, accountants being accountants, we like to have our breakdowns and our big numbers. And, you know, sometimes it's easier to see things like this a little bit. But if y'all have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
And all this information is in today's backup. So if anyone has any questions on it, that's where they can go see everything that you've just discussed. And
then the detail on the revenues and the expenditures that roll up into these numbers, there's a separate PDF that was attached to, because I know Councilman Herbershon, being a CPA, is like me. He wants to take in time to everything. So that's always helpful. So
good. Any questions? Any council member? All right, seeing no questions, and yes, Mr. Williams, I agree. I mean, I look at where we were just a year ago and where we were 2 and 3 years ago. We have come a very, very long way with information and transparency and things like that. So thank you to your staff and everybody else.
We're working to be more transparent. All
right, so and you're going to be handling the next number 9, which is discussion of general fund balance.
Yes, sir. I'm trying to pull it up right now. Okay. So this is a general fund balance discussion, and you're talking about transparency. And obviously we've had surpluses over the past several years. And the first couple of slides kind of tell the story of how we got to be where we are and kind of where administration sees that we'd like to go. If you go to the first slide. Okay. This is a line graph, and the blue represents the revenues and the orange represents the expenditures. And you're going to see right there in 17 and 18, there's kind of like where it basically went off the rails. And that was Hurricane Matthew. And that was, you know, expenditures related to cleanup. And then the revenues right there are related to FEMA reimbursements. But if you flatten out it going off the rails and you looked at revenues, it'd almost be a flat progression straight up through 2021. And it was a flat progression going up with expenditures until you get around 2020 and 2021, which is right when COVID hit, and we kind of stopped everything that we were doing. And you know, we thought revenues were going to fall off the cliff and we're going to have to fill a $10 million budget deficit. But we survived that and went through it. But, you know, where our expenditures were going kind of line in line, they kind of dropped off a little bit. You go to the next slide. And one of the things that really dropped off, if you can see, you started 2015 and you had a really big jump in 2019. Part of that had to do with the land purchase. But then it went back down. And then in 2021, you had it hit the lowest point since 2015. And that was all due to COVID because we weren't spending anything. We weren't addressing issues with our buildings or anything like that. So you go to the next slide. Okay. This slide's in here is basically the fund balance policies established by 2014 ordinance 2014/6 and is updated with 2018/57. And it states that the county needs to have between 17 and 30% of their prior year's expenditures in their general fund in an unassigned fund balance. And then the second paragraph basically says what it can be used on, and that's stabilized revenues, retired of fees debt, one-time unanticipated expenditures and judgments. And that's really for the dedicated, that 30%. So you go to the next slide. Now, of course, being a good little nerdy accountant, everybody's got to have their calculations. So we had these are all 2021 numbers, and obviously they're going to change for 2022. But the general fund had total of expenditures of roughly $117 million. 30% of that would be $35 million. So we had an actual unassigned or undesignated fund balance of $66 million at the end of 2021. So if we kept that, what policy said, that $35 million, we'd have $31 million that we could allocate to other things. And so, we put my head together with administration, and we came up with a possible use of it. Next slide. So we have 3 bonds that are coming due in this year, or they're callable this year. It's 2013 A, B, and C. And we're kind of looking at what we'd like to do as more of a hybrid. I would kind of say it's pay off some debt and fix your roof. So right now, to defease 2013 A and B is around $20 million in debt, and we could use about $12 million from the general fund, from the fund balance, and to help defease that, along with some money from the debt service fund, that from their fund balance. And then we could use that rest of that 19 million to fund a capital projects fund. So over the next 10 years, that'd save the taxpayers about $3.5 million in interest. It would reduce because of when the bonds are callable in May. So it's pretty well like we're going to have to pay it almost through the entire year. So we're not getting the benefit of the defeasance until probably the next year, but you'd have another mill that you could probably reduce the debt millage by. And it also would increase the amount that we'd be able to borrow by the amount that we pay off, which is approximately $20 million. The con about this is, instead of having, 7 months of unassigned fund balance that we could use in case of a disaster, we'd only have 4. But it's kind of where you want to, whatever you want to do.
Can you take questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the estimate of our capital improvements? I mean, this would free up 19 million, but what do we, we haven't done any capital in a long time. How much? 300. So this would be a little bit.
This is kind of a step in the right direction. I think this, along with dedicating a mill towards it too. And it's never going to stop us from bonding.
Right.
We're always going to have to bond.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that we need to get done on an annual basis, and it'll be a capital projects fund where we fund that project. Till that project's finished, it will stay in there until it's completed.
Okay. Thank you.
We had a meeting last week, and this is the next slide of the project, and we're not doing the whole $19 million yet. We're just starting with $9 million that we have that we think of projects that we can get accomplished next year. And so, we have EMS design, impossible purchase of land, public works is in need of design of a new facility, and storehouse and / warehouse barn. A lot of these warehouses that we have are needed because we have very expensive pieces of equipment. I'll take Parks and Rec, having a mower that costs $75,000 that's parked on the back of a trailer, and we need to get it covered when it's not out being used and get it taken care of. But Parks and Rec has a shed. Also, the renovate existing pools of $3.5 million. That's not counting the $1 million that we've already put to MC Riley. But this would be totally redoing and getting my understanding is the guts of the pool straightened out for about $500,000 a piece. Playgrounds of about $800,000. I think that's about 8 of those. And then there's some other issues with Parks and Rec for about $700,000 that we're going to be able to address if we take this plan too. And finally, in conclusion, we never really know what tomorrow's going to lead us with, but we really have an opportunity right now with this fund balance to kind of do things and put Beaufort County on a good path going forward as far as capital projects go. And there are a lot of needs and necessities in this growing county. I've been here 50 years and am absolutely amazed at how much it's grown in that time. But if y'all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
He answered my question.
Anyone on up? Yeah, Paul, go ahead. I can see you now, Paul. You're on mute.
The bonds that you're talking about retiring, are those referendum or 8% bonds?
Part of it is a referendum. Part of it is open, is ruling critical, but the majority of it's not. I'd have to look to give you the exact
That's all right,
number.
but it's a kind of a mixture.
It's a little bit of a mixture. Yes, sir.
Got some 8%, some referendum and some rural and critical in it.
Yes, sir. But
Okay.
more 8% than rural and critical, if I remember correctly.
All right,
I
that's fine.
can email you that breakdown when I get back to the office.
That's fine. Thank you.
Councilman Herbershon.
Yep. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. Great presentation, Hayes. My question would be whether or not this goes far enough in some of those projects, considering how big our needs are, number one. And then kind of tangentially related to that, is there more that we can do with Parks and Rec? Because I know we've got significant needs there, and we're going to have even more needs as this county continues to grow.
Yes, I agree with you. It is probably not enough, but I think that we're stepping down a direction that we've never have stepped down in this county before, and we're forward thinking. Based on what millages that we can kind of move together for this thing, whether it's 2 or 3 mills based on the value of a mill, it could be, between $4 and $6 million extra a year. What we end up at the end of the year, if we have a carryover again, we can put it down in the capital project. I mean, it's something when we have excess that we can build on, because there's always a need for a library or a park or a playground or a
Baseball field
or a public works building, but there's always a need for something. That public works building, I thought was interesting, because the first time that I went in there and saw the list of the councilmen that were on there was a Raymond Williams on there, who it was my dad. So dad came here in about 1973. So that's roughly 48, 49 years ago. That building may be in need of a little bit of renovation between now and then. But anyways, I thought it was interesting. So,
but as far as the upfront mix between bond retirement and projects, we feel like that's appropriate at this time, given that we've got another mechanism to kind of fund that going forward.
Yes, sir. Well, we're going to really we're going to probably put the $9 million aside as part of this. The defeasance won't be coming around until March and May of next year. So we have some time. I mean, there are going to be several ordinances. It won't be just kind of a wave of the hand and it all goes into one thing, into one pot. We're going to have to, really analyze it, I think, after the 2022 audit's out. But we're planning on getting that done a lot earlier this year than we have in past years. So we're going to meet the December 31 deadline on that easily. So, before the defeasance and moving around everything else to where it needs to be, I'll have y'all pretty solid numbers, not from 8 months ago.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Obviously, so Hayes, what are you looking for us to do today? Now, obviously, is this to move it to council for?
This is just an enlightening discussion that I'm having right now. The $9 million, the list that I had up there for y'all, Pinky's included that on her budget. So that's the one part that we'll be moving forward with. But the rest of it, will be as things progress. We'll have several ordinances, and the list may change, and everything's kind of in a constant state of flux. But I mean, this is just a really discussion, kind of let y'all know what we're thinking and where we would like to go.
Okay, good.
And hopefully y'all support us in this direction.
So you just need a head nod from us saying you're going in the right direction.
Hayes, you're going in the right direction. Please proceed.
I think that everyone out there has that same head nod. So yeah, please go forward. And let me just say also that, obviously some of the surplus has come because we did tighten our belts for COVID, not knowing what it was going to bring. And we had hiring freezes and pay freezes and capital improvement freezes, and didn't buy any equipment and things, like that. So again, this is what it has come from us being frugal, that we now have this. So I appreciate the staff and the sacrifices that the employees made during that time. So
yeah, we thought that revenues going to fall off the planet, and they stayed the same, and we held back for the worst, and it came out the best that we thought it could. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Straight. Great presentation. Thank you. All right, let's move on then to number 10. We have presentation of 2023 budget requests by the Ladies Island, St. Helena, and Burton Fire Districts. And who's going to go first? Chief, how are you today?
Very good, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of council. I'd first like to start by thanking council and the county administrator for including us in the hazard pay and the 5% COLA. So thank you, Eric, and thank you to council for including us in that. I have with me today the chair of our commission, Melinda Ellis, who's sitting back there with me. And I would be remiss to not to mention the other commission members that are on our fire board: Pat Harvey Palmer, Roosevelt McCullough, Chet Houston, and Scott Dennis. They all do a fantastic job for us. Our proposed budget for FY23 focuses on bringing our salaries to a competitive level and apparatus replacement. Due to budget restrictions and issues over the last few years, our fire district, Ladies Island St. Helena Fire District, has fallen behind in our salaries. We cannot postpone any longer. We need a salary adjustment, and we're proposing that today. It's impacting our ability to recruit and retain firefighters. The fire service, or the whole entire emergency service, law enforcement, EMS, and fire, has become extremely competitive. It's damn near a bidding war. It really is. And we've fallen behind. The commission approved a 2.6 mil increase this year in operations, with 100% of that going to salary and benefits. With this year's CPI and growth, we're allowed to go 2.8. We're asking for 2.6 in operations. Apparatus replacement. I've been coming before the finance committee and county council for the last several years talking fleet replacement, and we have been unable to do that because of budget. We are proposing a 2 mil increase in debt for apparatus replacement. So in summary, our budget proposal is 2.6 mil increase in operations and a 2 mil increase in debt. Operations would go from 41.1 mil to 43.7. Debt will go from 2 mils to 4 mils. I've spoke with both our county council reps, Mr. Somerville and Mr. Glover, and they both are in support of our budget. I would also like to thank Pinky and all her work with the fire service. Some of us have to be kind of hand guided through a lot of this, and she does a great job for us. So I'm prepared to answer any question you may have. I beg for approval. We're desperately need salary adjustments and fleet replacement.
Any questions for Chief Klein?
Mr. Somerville's got his hand up.
Mr. Somerville, go ahead.
No question, just a comment. I know in past years, you all have been millage neutral, and you've really struggled to keep it down. I appreciate that. And I know what you're up against in terms of competition for professional firefighters and other professionals. So I strongly support the budget, and I appreciate what you've done in past years. And given the fact that you're under the cap, I'm absolutely in support. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Herbershaw, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Can you talk a little bit about the pipeline of firefighters and where that is right now?
The pipeline is run dry. There in state of South Carolina, I can tell you in March, there was over 500 firefighter positions open. Locally, what we're seeing is counties around us escalating the salaries and providing incentives. So we're losing firefighters to the counties around us and even within Beaufort County because I have fallen behind. It's become very competitive. I'm $4,000 to $6,000 a year starting salary behind.
Jeez. How about as far as firefighters entering the pipeline, like going to, starting training and wanting to get into the profession? What's that look like?
We are very fortunate. The last couple that we've hired and sent to recruit school have come back with awards and done a great job at the fire academy. But if I have 4 positions open, I got 2 good candidates.
Gotcha. Thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Any comments for Chief Klein? right, Chief Klein, thank you. Appreciate
Thank
you being
you,
here
sir.
today. Great presentation.
Yes, sir.
And next up, I think we've got Chief Roundtree.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for coming today.
I too, first off, my name is Harry Roundtree. I'm chief at the Burton Fire District. And I too want to thank y'all for including us, including our firefighters in the COVID hazard pay and the 5% COLA. It was greatly received and we were very, very appreciative of that. We have kept our budget at the same millage for the past 3 budget cycles. This year, for many of the same reasons that Chief Klein presented, we're kind of in the same scenario. We've both, or all of our local fire departments have lost to some of the surrounding counties where their baseline salaries are exceeding some of the pay that we're paying for experienced personnel. And there was a time when we put an opening out and advertised for an opening, we'd get 20 or 30 applicants. I'm lucky at this point to receive 1 or 2. And quite honestly, we have done a lot of the firefighters that I've hired recently. I've had the luxury of being able to hire a few that had some training, and we've ended up taking them from other fire departments in the upper part of the state, unfortunately. But the majority of our budget increase comes primarily from the 5% COLA and the benefits that are associated with that. We did see an increase in our health insurance and in our workers' comp. The primary line items that are affected this year involve fuel, vehicle maintenance, and anything that's got anything to do with supply as far as shipping and things like that. We saw some increases in those line items. We too are below the well below the cap that we are allowed to increase. We did see a small increase in the value of the mill this estimated year. And I'm asking, our operations budget is $5,862,577. And we believe that would require 73.5 mills at the estimated amount. And our debt service budget, we reduced this last fiscal. And where it has been 5.1 mills, this year we believe we can do with 4.2 mills, and ask that those remaining millage, that extra 0.9, be converted to operations to lessen the impact on the increase. At this point, I'll be glad to answer any questions anyone might have.
I have one question. Do you have any open vacancies now that you haven't been able to fill?
I filled my last one today. I do have one for our medical training officer, and we're interviewing. We received four applicants for that, and we're interviewing that over the next 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Our firefighting staff at this point is full.
Any other questions for Chief Roundtree? Seeing no questions, thank you for coming out today. We appreciate that, Chief Roundtree. And Ms. Harriet, obviously you do a great job. So we've gotten everything from them that we need for this budget season. Okay, great. So obviously next it would be for us to either approve or deny their requests of millage and budget increase for this council, and to include it in the budget to push it forward. So
do you need a motion?
We need a motion or just no?
You'll do it as item, you'll do it under
as a final thing. Okay, great.
Thanks again.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you. All right, so let's then move on to number 11, and that is the presentation for fiscal year 2023 Low Country Regional Transportation Authority.
Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to come for you and the committee this afternoon and talk a little bit about what our Regional Transportation Authority is doing for our community, what we plan to do, and how Beaufort County can partner with us. I think we've got a presentation. I want to start by just giving you all an update sort of where we've been this last year or so and what we've been able to accomplish during this past fiscal year. Next slide, please.
And let me just interrupt, Mr. Chris. I didn't give you the proper introduction, so I want to thank you for coming. It's Henry Chris,
Yes,
and your title at the transportation, the LRTA is?
Yes, sir. I'm the Director of Finance
Okay.
and Administration, and also present with me is our Executive Director, Ms. Mary Lou Franzoni.
Great. Thank you for coming.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So we continue to operate our the mainstay of our service, which is it's probably about 70% of what we do is our commuter service. And we run those fixed routes from far out in the region as far as Allendale, Hampton, Colleton counties, down into, and if I could go ahead and have the next slide, into Hilton Head. And then also we have the service here in northern Beaufort County, which has a circulator around Beaufort, and then that commuter component that takes people to jobs down on Hilton Head. And we're still going strong on that. That's what we've been doing since our inception in the late 70s, early 80s. There's a couple things that we're real proud of that we want to share with you guys. We've had a major increase in ridership, and I think we'd attribute that to the rise in fuel costs, right? As people are having to fill their own tanks to get to and from work, they're starting to use our service. We've had excellent safety performance this past year. We've been able to leverage some finances that were available through the FTA to purchase 2 brand new MCI motor coaches. So we're taking our fleet, which at one time, just 10 years ago, was in not a great state of good repair. And we've taken it to where we're really at the cutting edge of in the state of good repair. So we've got some really good equipment. We also were recognized, some of our staff and our organization was recognized at our statewide Transportation Association conference, which was held on Hilton Head this past year. 2 other things I want to highlight for the committee this afternoon. We've got our Breeze trolley, which operates seasonally on Hilton Head. We've been able to operate it fare free, and we added to the route this year. It continues to expand, and we've had record ridership. I think it was 52,000 unlinked passenger trips last year, and this year we expect that we're gonna blow that out of the water as well. We've already had a great deal of interest. We're a little bit into our service this year, but it's continuing to go. And as you can see from the next slide, we run from basically mid-island, almost the north end, all the way down to the south end. You know, we knew that tourists were going to take advantage of this. We knew that folks were going to ride it to dinner and things like that. But we've even seen folks using it and heard stories of folks using it to ride to and from work. So people are really taking advantage of this, not only as sort of an addition to the experience of visiting Beaufort County, but they're also using it as a service to kind of undergird our workforce. The other thing that we started recently was we serve the greater Bluffton area with a fixed route. In September of 21, we started the Bluffton Breeze service. So it's a fixed route that runs basically from one end of Bluffton to the other, not just in town, but serving unincorporated areas around Bluffton as well. It operates from 7 in the morning to 6 p.m. So folks are riding it to and from work, to lunch, to visit some things. And we were able to adjust it. We had some interest from the new RV resort, which came in down off of Burnt Church Road, and they asked for us to work with them. We were able to adjust the route to serve that RV resort, and we also now serve Old Town. So that's been a really beneficial service, and it's been very popular. We expect, like the trolley, it's going to continue to grow in popularity as we continue to move forward. Another thing that we do is supporting emergency operations with Sheriff Tanner and his folks in the event of a natural disaster. We perform the functions of ESF1. We expanded that to coordinate with Jasper County as well. As I'm sure everyone knows from our experience with Hurricane Matthew, there are no shelters located here in Beaufort County if we are under mandatory evacuation. So we're going to work with between the 2 emergency operations centers to coordinate that transportation to and from the shelters in a better way. And in addition, we also provide other services as we can to make sure that our people can get, our citizens can get to a safe place in the event of a disaster. Moving forward, we're looking at purchasing some more additional vehicles. There's a slide we're talking about here in a second where we're going to talk about some potential service at the Hilton Head Island Airport. And we were able to leverage some of this federal money to purchase 3 new, we call them cutaways. So they're the smaller green buses, and they actually are going to be configured. We expect to take delivery probably in the near future. I mean, it's imminent. And they're configured to do that airport service. We've got some luggage racks built into them, as well as purchasing 2 more of those motor coaches. And there's our future plan. So what we're looking at doing moving forward, we're in the middle of a planning study, hopefully get towards the end of it, of what we can do and how we can serve the entirety of the island from the airport. We were approached by both the town of Hilton Head and the county's airport staff and said, hey, how can we solve this problem? We've got folks who get off airplanes and they can't get where they need to go. So we engage with a planning firm, and hopefully we're going to have a proposal here in the next coming months that'll solve some of those problems. The local match for that specific service is not included in our request this time around. We'd hope the timing would work better. We'd have all that information, but they haven't finished the planning study yet, so we don't have that information. But we'll have it to staff as soon as we have that resolved. And just to give the committee an idea of where our money's coming from, this is sometimes a misconception, is that a lot of folks think that our fares pay for our services. We're not revenue neutral. Even our fares, we collect probably about $29,000-$30,000 a month in fares, and we spend more than that in fuel. So it is those federal grants, the state mass transit funds, and of course the local match that our local government partners provide, that provide the lion's share of that revenue. And you can see our revenues on the rural side. If I have the next slide, please. The urban side, which is Bluffton, Hilton Head. Again, you can see the federal government shoulders the majority of that expense, with the state and us and our local partners sharing the rest of it. So our request for Beaufort County Council this year is that the council would allocate $337,097, which would include service for the rural counties and the growing urban side. That's, to give you the breakdown, that's $229,809 of local match on the rural side, and $107,288 of local match on the urban side. And again, those dollars we're able to leverage the federal dollars because of that local match. So for every dollar we spend in operations that we get from the federal government, we need a dollar locally to match that. And if I could have the next slide, I'll show you. And I believe this is in your supporting documents. We take and divide the rural local match amongst the 5 counties, and the town of Hilton Head pays a share of it as well, based on a blend of the population and the ridership. So that's where we come up with what we would propose as an equitable share for the county to pay their share of the rural side. And then on the urban side, it's mainly just the population. Obviously, these numbers are the last census numbers that we used. We'll hopefully have some different numbers next year, and that's going to change. But the urban area is split up between the town of Bluffton and town of Hilton Head, and we'd ask that the county council provide the share for unincorporated Beaufort County. And that's all I have for you. Be glad to answer any questions that you all have.
Any questions for Mr. Chris? I don't see any. Oh, no, I thought Gerald had a question. No questions. And Ms. Harriet, so everything that they've asked for, we've gotten from them. So that's great to hear. Mr. Chris, thank you for coming out. We appreciate you all being here. You guys do a great job, and we appreciate all you do. I know sometimes you guys don't get the credit for what's going on out there. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, let's then move on to item number 12, and this would be fiscal year 23, the Beaufort County Sheriff Office budget presentation. So, Sheriff Tanner, how are you today?
Good, Madam Mr. Chairman. I am fully prepared to give you my budget presentation. So I'll step aside and turn it over to
Smart man. That's it.
Good afternoon. Today, I will be presenting our fiscal year 23 budget request. I'd like to start with our first budget, and that consists of our general fund. As has been noted, we have decided to consolidate all of our general fund departments into one. Therefore, that's why on some of your previous correspondence, some of the percentages may have been a little out of whack because everything was consolidated into one general fund account number. In the interest of time, I will hit the highlights. We currently have a total of 342 positions. However, we have 277 personnel on board. We currently have 22 applications active on file, and we are choosing to fund 320 positions. The vacant positions, we are funding at an 85% level. And if you notice, those are the highlights of our personnel category. Also, I've kind of included some of the notes of what we have spent year to date, just like the firemen. And we have some increases in our training because during COVID, everything was shut down. We now have to get all of our recertifications up to date for our firearms instructors, our defensive driving, our OC spray, et cetera. Therefore, there is a large percentage increase in that particular category, as well as with the academy is open. So we are sending our applicants there. However, unfortunately, they do not have their housing open at this time. So we do have to pay for a hotel room while they are there. Next, I'd like to move on to our purchase services. Put some notes onto the side where some of these line item account numbers have already been consolidated with the fiscal year 22 budget. Notably, our garage contract, that was definitely consolidated under the garage contract fund. And that just moves us on to supplies, our normal supplies, which can range from anything from our office, forensic lab, body armor, uniforms, our fuels, anything to that extent. Our fuels have increased. We have more drivers on board. And of course, the prices at the pump, we've all endured. Lastly, for capital items, we are not purchasing any vehicles out of fiscal year 23's budget. We are replacing a DMS board, which is one of those roadside electronic signs that inform you that there's a hazard coming up. And that's about $26,000. And the satellite dish for our law enforcement center, which allows for our satellite communications for our phones and our radios. Lastly, we have 3 traffic cameras that we'd like to install. The locations are listed there. One at Midtown, Port Royal by the McDonald's. The second, Sam's Point Road and Miller Drive. And the third, US 278 Extension and Sun City Boulevard. Our original request was a $1,690,000 increase from fiscal year 22. However, as you can see from today, we are requesting a reduced amount of $1,365,755 general fund dollars. So our increase is approximately $1,365,755. This general fund dollar request also includes a general fund transfer to our school resource officer fund of approximately $216,000. And I will gladly answer any questions on the general fund budget, or I can move on to our school resource officer budget.
Any questions from anybody up to this point? Councilman Hervershaw, go ahead.
Thank you. Question about the open positions. So you're roughly 90% fulfilled right now. Am I doing the math right there? Close to it. 277 out of 320.
Of what we're funding, yes.
Okay. And then you're funding the new positions at 85%, which would seem to suggest that you're going to be fully staffed by September 1st-ish.
That depends on the applicants and their ability to be approved throughout the application process.
Okay. Just given where we are with just talent pools everywhere, apparently, and your pipeline, like, do you think you're going to be fully staffed by September 1st, or like is 85%? Is that a conservative number? I'm just trying to get a sense of whether or not that would even be achievable, really. just given where we are with the labor pool.
What Suzanne's doing is creating a budget in the hopes that these vacancies will be filled, and we're doing it in concert with the county because the county is doing the same thing. They fund 85% of those positions. So, we're looking at doing the same thing. Can I have all the positions filled at the sheriff's office by September 1st? I don't have the answer to that question. Should we be prepared to do that? The answer is yes. Just over the past month, actually, if I go back, I'll go back and take in April and probably most of March to tell you that the work that we've done with compensation at the county, at the sheriff's office, and the work that we have done with county council, not only with the payment out of the ARPA fund, but also the 5% increase that county council approved that went into effect. Our application pool has increased dramatically, not only in the civilian market, the communications market, but also in the law enforcement field. My gut feeling, based on what I've seen since January, is that the private sector is not necessarily the greener grass of job opportunities. And we're starting to see those applications come back into a government funded job with benefit, retirement, forfeit, 401 and 457. So we're seeing an increase. I wish I could have these vacancies filled by the 1st of June, but that wouldn't be realistic. But we've got to look at the funding apparatus to take care of us during the fiscal year. So doing it at 85% or modifying it to suit maybe council's view on that is something that we can do. But right now the applications are pouring in for all positions, and they're having the same impact at other agencies, law enforcement agencies in the county. At a time in September of 2021, there were 4,600 law enforcement vacancies in South Carolina throughout the state. And then it creeped up to 5,000. But I think we're actually, we're on the good side now. We're going to start making up the difference. The governor did a good job in January by sending a letter to the South Carolina Department of Administration asking for an analysis for state law enforcement. That was published in February. They did a good job. They identified the triple threat. The triple threat to public safety and law enforcement is it not only is it finding men and women who want a profession in law enforcement, which is one of them, but our percentages of retirees in law enforcement is another fear. At the sheriff's office right now, I've got over 50 employees that have the ability to retire anytime, any day, either for age or for years of service. So we want to retain them. We want to keep them. And doing the things that council approved, like with the COLA, that's a big way we do that. But the other thing, and quite honestly, you're using it here today. We have, during the COVID pandemic, we taught a lot of people to work from home. We're teaching corporations today not to build, with mortar and brick, don't have to do it. You can work from home. We've got council members here today that are actually working on Zoom, working from home. And that's a big move in the corporate world, but it's also something in the government structure as well. So we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us, but we're making ends meet. Let me put it that way.
Thank you. Before you leave, do you have a sense, just very, very broadly, of the pipeline coming into law enforcement, like new folks coming into law enforcement, and what that looks like?
I don't know if I understand the question because I can't hear you very well.
I'm sorry. So the question is about the pipeline coming into law enforcement and what that looks like very, very broadly. So we've got a large population that has the ability to retire. Are we going to be able to replace those folks fast enough?
If I had 50 retire today, I'd say we'd be in bad shape. There is an increase. Hey, look, take the national politics and put them to the side. That's probably been the biggest demon that we've been dealing with for the past couple of years. Law enforcement has taken it on the chin from every angle. And from the national media down, it's actually driven people away from public safety. I'm not only public safety as law enforcement, but fire and EMS, nurses, teachers, all the stuff that's going on in the national bog has created a problem for everyone, in the service industry included. I think things are getting better. I know that our employees at the sheriff's office, and we've had 8 retire this year. Some go to the private sector, and some just finally had their fill of law enforcement after 30, 35 years and say, you know what? It's not the same job I signed up for 35 years ago. So, but I know in Beaufort County, and I know in South Carolina, that the treatment the law enforcement gets within the state of South Carolina is amazing. It really is. The governor on down, they realize what law enforcement means to the state, in his own way of doing what he did in January is proof that he's concerned about it. But what county council did is also proof by giving the stipend with the ARPA money and the 5% COLA. You're actually telling people, and there's a lot of people that surf the internet, they're looking for great places to live, which Beaufort County is one of them, with a crime rate under the national average, and the salaries being competitive, not only in the private sector, even though you can't work from home in your pajamas with a cup of coffee in your hand, but you can do a lot of different things. But I think it's looking a whole lot better. And what y'all have done here recently with y'all's funding has actually made a lot of people look and appreciate what it's like and what it means to work in Beaufort County. So, it's a long answer to a very short question, but I think the pipeline is open. And we're receiving applications.
Any other questions for Sheriff Tanner or Susan? All right, so obviously a big budget, because obviously you are, besides the school district, which again, it's not our budget for them, you guys are the next largest amount that we but all right, no more questions. And as usual, there usually are some council people that reach out and say, hey, what about this with this? So hopefully you stay open, just whatever people ask, because again, you are the second largest, or our largest part of our budget that we have here. So thank you for coming out.
Well, Councilor Wilson, we have 2 more budgets.
Okay, good.
If you don't
yep, keep going.
in time, okay. I will go through them quickly. The next tab is for our school resource officer. And basically the increases there are in the personnel category that are attributed to the 5% cost of living. I mean, the 5% cost of living in our compensation plan, as well as Ms. Richland was kind enough to send me some information on our fringe benefits and how to budget them for fiscal year 23. So therefore there's some notes to the side of the actual expenditure request. The last one.
Oh, I have one question.
Good.
School resource officers at the high schools. How many are there like Battery Creek High School and Well Branch? Are there usually one on duty?
We have 8 school resource officers total that we.
Okay. That answers it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And anybody else?
So that's everything on the resource officers.
Sure.
And those are, I'm going to go through this. So those are partially funded by, Bluffton does fund some of that money. They used to, or they still do, or?
Actually, this is a 75%, 25% fund. And the Academy of Career Excellence is where we have one of our officers. They pay for 75% of that officer's expenditures there, as well as the school district pays for 75% of the remaining 7 officers and their specific expenditures. The general fund makes up the 25%.
Okay.
So that's where that transfer comes in. So,
all right, thank you.
All right, lastly is the Hilton Head budget. And this year is the first year that it has been appropriated to its own special fund. I believe in fiscal year 21, I think they did move over the expenditures per se, but we actually budgeted in fiscal year 22 under this fund 2280. Same thing. The Fiscal year 22, as you can see, the group insurance, workers' comp, tort, and unemployment was not budgeted in this particular fund. It was still pooled at that time. However, I'm sure by the end of the year, the allocation will be made to this fund and revenues were collected to cover those expenditures. So therefore, when we look at the Hilton Head budget, there's not a huge increase. It's just because in fiscal year 22, these expenditures weren't budgeted. In fiscal year 23, they are budgeted. That's about $700,000 of this $1,249,220 increase. Next, basically that's where the increases are in the personnel category. We do have some increases with the fuels, of course, but basically everything else is immaterial.
Is there any questions that we have out there? So if we look at that budget real quick, we were paying the overtime before, but it just wasn't in the Hilton Head budget, or how'd that work?
No, overtime, everything was in there. The benefits were not budgeted per se. However, those expenditures will be allocated to that fund, even though they weren't budgeted by the end of the year. And revenues were collected this year to cover those expenditures.
Okay.
But when you look at fiscal year 22 right beside fiscal year 23, and it looks like there's a huge increase when in reality it isn't.
So were those being paid on the county side? Is that why the increase now we've shifted them or allocated them to the correct?
It's just a journal entry.
Okay.
I think it was just maybe paid from one spot when it should be paid from another, and that will just be corrected.
Okay.
So.
Again, any questions from anybody regarding the Hilton Head budget?
I have one, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. When it comes to the Hilton Head user fee, we're going to need to evaluate that fee. We have commissioned Tisher Bice to do that study to make sure, again, that what's costing to serve Hilton Head Island is actually reflected in the user fee. And it's our understanding that Tisher Bice will have that study updated by the end of June so that we can make whatever adjustments are necessary to the user fee to reflect the increase by the sheriff's budget for that, and to pass the appropriate ordinance so it can appear in the tax bills.
Okay. So there's nothing we need to do today. That's just a formality that's done in the budget.
Just letting you all know that we're having to reevaluate the sheriff's user fee for Hilton Head Island. Let the sheriff know that, and that all of that's going to be done within enough time so that we can make whatever adjustments are necessary before tax bills go out.
Okay. And I'm not going to ask about any updates on that because we don't have time today. So we'll move forward. All right. Any other questions for Sheriff Tanner or Suzanne?
Let me say that because I don't want people to be confused about it. Okay. I mean, I know we refer to it as a sheriff's user fee. And you can refer to it that way if you want to, but the reality is I come before this body to get my budget out of the general fund. What revenues you consider as a county council that build and grow your general fund, that's your business. I'm not taxing the citizens of Hilton Head a user fee for us to provide law enforcement. I have 923 square miles of county to protect. The general fund budget's what gives me the opportunity and authority and the ability to protect 923 square miles, which includes Hilton Head and all the other municipalities. Now, I just want to make sure, I know we call it that. And every when I go to different places on Hilton Head, I have people looking at me going like, so you're the reason why my taxes are going up. The reality to it, I mean, general fund is where my budget comes from. And I'm proud to say also this year, because we have moved into trying to get more funding out of the state in the form of technology improvements, and on the science side, our forensic services lab. We got $500,000 last year, which allows us to go in and replace outdated technology and outdated equipment. And we're getting, I'm hoping we're getting $400,000 this year, which will go a long way in helping us keep the lab and the technology stuff updated without asking you for additional money. So we're very, very, very happy about that. But I just wanted to make that comment. I'm not picking on anyone or saying anything negative about anybody. I just wanted to make sure I put that on the record.
And we understand that. So, thank you for pointing that out. And you're right that this is something between us and the town of Hilton that we need to figure out.
I think it would be better term law enforcement user fee. I just, I used the wrong terminology there. Law enforcement user fee.
I think it should be an Eric Greenway user fee.
Sheriff Tanner, thank you, Suzanne. Thank you.
Y'all know if you ever need anything from the county council, I mean, I'm easy to find. You got my cell phone number. Suzanne's willing, as well as my chief deputy, Mike Hatfield's here. Any question you have at any time, by all means, and feel free to call us. Okay.
Good. Thank you, Sheriff Tanner. Thank you, Suzanne. And Ms. Harriet, we're good. Everything that provide everything that we need from them. So, okay, great. All right, let's keep this train rolling. And next up, item number 13. The 23 Treasurer's Office Budget Presentation.
Yes, sir.
You're on there.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Ms. Walls, we appreciate you coming on today, so thank you, and go ahead.
Absolutely. So, actually, abnormal for me, I do not have a planned presentation for you because I wanted to ensure that I was answering your questions. I believe that Ms. Harriet would have already provided our budget to you, but the focal area, the primary areas of our increase is in the area of postage and printing. Now, given my presentation, my quite extensive presentation a few weeks ago to council, I don't think that there should be any shock that we are requesting an increase for those two line items. All other areas of our budget operating wise should remain the same. We expect to remain the same, but we are a growing county. We are experiencing about 6.5% growth in the volume of accounts. The post office will begin a postage increase in July of this year, and then we'll continue to raise postage twice a year, beginning in January 2023, and from that point forward. In light of that, our print vendor has notified us that we should expect approximately a 20% increase in overall expenditures, including that postage increase. You will see in our budget request, I'm not asking for a 20% increase. I am working with our online billing vendor. For everyone watching, it's my Beaufort County. We work with an incredible company named Payout, and it provides a free e-billing service, not just for the county, but also for our taxpayers. And we are working together to continue encouraging the use of my Beaufort County so that we can make up for these increased printing and postage costs through increased adoption with my Beaufort County. So we're working to offset the costs that, they're coming. There's very little we can do about the cost of a stamp, but we are looking for ways that we can offset the effects that will have on our taxpayers and on our budget. So I have all of my data in front of me. I have my presentation from the other week, and I really just wanted to see what questions you all had for me. And before you get to that, I want to thank you. I know that the budget process is an annual process for most people, but it shouldn't shock you to know that in the treasurer's office, we plan 3 to 5 years at a time. And last year, I did request additional personnel because in the position I'm in, I can see the growth we're having. I can see it coming. I can see it increasing. And you know what? Noah didn't build the ark in the rain. He did it ahead of time. And so I want to thank you for the personnel you did approve last year so that we could walk into this calendar year completely equipped and ready for this increased growth. So we're ready to knock it out of the park next year too. But I did want to thank you for that additional opportunity last year, and I'm able to come to you this year strictly focused on printing and postage expenditures.
Great. Any questions for Ms. Wallace from anyone here? Again, I know you came before us before, and I do miss your presentation when you show stuff because it's so much easier than you make it so simple. So you do a phenomenal job. We all know that. So we appreciate everything that you do. I can't see anyone on the screen. So if there's anybody that has a question for Ms. Wallace. All right, Ms. Wallace, thank you for coming out today. We appreciate your time. Great job as usual. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, then let's move on. And obviously we have Beaufort County School District coming forward. Our wonderful superintendent, Mr. Frank Rodriguez.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. And those of you online as well, good afternoon. And thank you for the opportunity to come before you today and share with you a little bit about our budget. Ms. Crosby is going to take us through the presentation on the budget. But before that, I just want to share with council members that the focus and the priority on this budget has been salaries for teachers and teacher salaries. You'll see in the presentation some of the important significance around that. Another factor is the reality that in education across the nation, shortages in teachers is very real. It's not only there, it's in the state, and it's also present locally, right? And so we want to make sure that we make an impact on that, because all school districts in South Carolina and all school districts across the country are competing for the same talent pool. And talent is significant, and talent is important, particularly as we're trying to make an impact on student outcomes and future for students. And so our focus in this budget has certainly been on compensation for our teachers and our employees. And so with that in mind, we'll go ahead and begin.
And first, let me say I apologize. I called you Mr. Rodriguez. It's Dr. Rodriguez. And so thank you.
About that.
And then obviously Tanya coming forward, Tanya Crosby, and she is the Chief Financial Officer for the school district.
Yes,
so thank you for coming, Tanya.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. I want to first recognize our school district staff. If you are with the school district, please raise your hand. So as you can see today, there is a tremendous support for this budget for me, Dr. Rodriguez, and we're very proud to have a tremendous team of people. Today we have instructional services, human resources, finance, Dr. Rodriguez, myself. So all those representing, want to make sure we cover any topics, any questions you may have today. So we have folks ready to share their challenges and their accomplishments, whichever that may be. And also I want to acknowledge the fact I speak regularly with county staff, with Pinky, with Mr. Rodman as well, council member, and with Whitney and with Hayes as well. So I appreciate their efforts in constantly communicating back and forth things as we compare notes or information that we need to share. So I appreciate that very much. So I have a summary today, and then I have some details that I'm going to leave with you or email to all of you. We don't have time for a lot of the details today, but this is basically the overview of our budget. So we always like to talk about the great things that are happening in the district first. And here are just a few. Include we received the Military Purple Star designation in this fiscal year. Also, we've received many grants and donations to help us with instructional programs like the MedTech 7 grant at many of our schools, to name one. We're offering programs at no cost to students and to families, and that includes childcare, summer school and summer camps, and extended after-school programs. And student meals are free until the end of the summer. So those are some of the things that we've been able to take advantage of, either through our ESSER, or also known as ARPA funds, or our USDA allocations. Also, collaboration with community partners. We've collaborated with Technical College of Low Country and USC Beaufort on a number of different topics as well, and continue to do that. And also after school programs, we've recently embarked on a program where we're partnering with local churches and after school community centers to provide free aftercare programs to students as well. And then we're nearing the referendum midpoint. We've expanded 2 schools right off the bat and have major upgrades at a couple more schools. Every school is experiencing safety, security, and technology upgrades, and we're about halfway through those. And so we'll continue. We have a couple more years to complete those projects, but they're going very well. So with our great things are many challenges as well. And you've heard about many of them today. You're going to hear very similar things that you've heard from the fire districts, the sheriff's office. We're encountering the same thing. So some of the challenges include affordable housing. With many of the teachers that we attempt to hire and even staff members, we had one recently in the finance area that they were coming here, they were accepted the job and then found that they couldn't afford to live here. And even if they could afford it, there wasn't anything available. So it's the rising constant cost of rising housing is definitely an issue for us. Rising healthcare. We have an 18% increase in this budget. So not only for us, but others in the community are having particularly rising cost issues there. Fuel was mentioned earlier today. The cost of food is up, and we feed a lot of people, a lot of children every day, 21,000 students. And so that cost is climbing every day. Childcare is becoming very expensive for our teachers, for our other staff members. That's why that's one of the initiatives that we have in place is to offer free childcare for our staff. And labor shortage is really an issue for us. Recruiting and retaining our highly qualified teachers and staff, administrators as well, has become one of the biggest challenges we have in the school district. And from other aspects, either operationally or capital projects, supply chain is a problem. We may order a school bus and it takes 6, 8, or 12 months to get here. HVAC units that we're trying to use ESSER funds or bonding funds to support and improve our schools and the indoor air quality there sometimes take a lead time of 6 to 12 months anywhere. So large items, refrigeration units in our kitchens, and so on. So it's endless, and we hope to see it improving soon, but we will continue to try to plan. We try to plan earlier to anticipate those delays. So the district continues to hire nearly 300 teachers, new teachers every school year, about 500 employees for the whole district, so 300 of which are teachers. So the timeline, or not the timeline, excuse me, the pipeline, I think Mr. Hervershaw mentioned earlier. One of my comments is going to be that the number of teachers available to hire is diminishing. So our colleges aren't graduating as many teachers because the profession is generally not as well paid as across the nation as some of the other occupations. Mm-hmm.
On that particular point, some staggering numbers for us to consider and to think about. Nationwide, 50% of educators leave the profession, in a cohort of teachers, leave the profession by the 5th year, 50%. Here in South Carolina, approximately 8% of educators are leaving for one reason or another. Right. And whether it's family move, whether it's retirement, whether it's leaving the profession. Our colleges and universities are graduating students that replace 4%. Right off the bat, you see a significant gap, which means that in order for us to hire and employ teachers and educators, we are also having to go outside of the state of South Carolina. And so that's why I say to you earlier that nationwide school districts are competing across the country for the same talent pool and educators, because that's a reality. So
as a result of the challenges we're facing, of course, recruiting and retention is the primary focus of this year's budget. But finally, another major challenge is our state legislative process. So the State House has passed a budget with an increase for teachers' salaries of $4,000, which would bring the state minimum teacher salary schedule to $40,000. the state Senate has approved a budget to approve a $2,000 increase, which would bring the state teacher minimum salary schedule to $38,000. It is my understanding that on Friday, the legislature convened and will not reconvene. The session ended and will not reconvene until sometime in June. So we are moving forward through the process without a finalization of those numbers. And so we do have some early revenue projections from both the House and the Senate. This budget is based more on the House version of the budget of the state budget. So we'll continue to move forward and we'll likely get the budget passed before we have a true final picture of what our state revenues and our state mandates, which are also a large part of the expenditure budget, before we know what those are. So we have gone to the board and had multiple discussions throughout the last few months of the budget and some options of what we wanted to do, how we wanted to address the teacher shortage, the teacher salaries, and all other employee compensation as well. So we brought a group of students together, had some great contact, great collaboration with students in every high school of the county. Very enlightening, actually. With staff, and then we had a couple of community forums where we had teachers, we had all other staff members, we had parents, and just members of the community attend as well. So we have received a cross section of input, and we also have a new section of our website called BCSD Connect, and we posted all of our information on the website, our PowerPoints, and offered them to gain some input and feedback there. And so we constantly are receiving multiple comments each day, and then we're able to respond to any questions or clarify topics that may be confusing for our community members. So we took the feedback from our budget forum and lumped it into major categories, and they really kind of fell out in 4 major categories: compensation, communication, climate, and leadership. So we believe that we're addressing with this budget the teacher pay and the compensation of all other employees as well with this budget. And then communication, we're making sure to get public engagement and then building relationships with our community members to understand what challenges they are seeing and the things that we need to address. Climate, many of the items listed under the climate section of working conditions, mental health awareness, and classroom support, many of those are being addressed with our ESSER or ARPA funds. So I know that we do have mental health supports and awareness in those, but we'll continue to address areas in the climate because we know that compensation isn't everything. The climate and the culture have to be strong and healthy as well. And leadership as well, the accountability, investment, and action. And we are using ESSER funds to provide professional development for our leaders. And those are ongoing sessions that occur monthly, weekly, quarterly, and annually to build those leadership skills in our existing leaders, our new leaders, and our potential leaders as we build them to move into our teachers or other staff members to move into leadership roles. So in terms of the current starting teacher salary in South Carolina, one of our board members early on in the year, when this discussion of teacher salaries has been talked about in our board committees since probably early January or before. So in actually our operations committee, one of our board members asked for a comparison of the starting teacher salary in Beaufort in comparison to starting teacher salaries across the state of South Carolina. So I know that this is a busy slide. You can't see the words at the bottom, but basically this is 77 school districts throughout the state of South Carolina. On the far left, at the high point, in blue, the blue high point is Greenville and York 4, which is Fort Mill. And the far end, at the right-hand end, is Bamberg, Sumter, and I can't read the other two that I was going to mention. So Of 77 school districts in the state, the starting teacher salary that we began with in Beaufort at the beginning of the school year was $37,928, which was 53rd of 77 school districts in the state of South Carolina. Now, I do want to make a caveat there. This does not include the locality supplement. There is a $5,000 locality supplement we have that is not included in the base teacher salary. It's a supplement that's provided twice per year, and it is paid in December and May. And so I'll include that number in conversation in just a moment. So as a result of, like the county, the school district experienced a large savings in our salaries and benefits in this year. We've been watching it very closely as early as probably November, December. I think Dr. Rodriguez and I were talking about what that would look like as we move further through the year. And so on March 25th, the school board passed a 3% cost of living increase effective retroactively back to July 1 of last school year. So that brought the starting teacher salary up to $39,066 as we are right now. So that will immediately increase the teacher salary, starting teacher salary by about $1,000. And then the proposal from the House was a $4,000 increase. So our budget proposal includes a $4,000 increase from that number to raise to $45,556. And so that also includes what the budget includes is a $4,000 increase plus a proposal from the board to move half of the locality supplement into the base teacher salary as well. So it becomes a permanent wage. It does not require an annual increase of the budget. So this includes both a $4,000 increase and a $2,500 locality movement from the twice a year, half of it into a permanent wage. So I'm going to provide you some more details on that and the costs of each of those line items, and I will get those out to you before the end of the day. And so the cost for each of the separate items, the cost to the district of the $2,500 movement is $1 million in retirement. The retirement, we are required by the state to participate with the state retirement system. The rate increased once again, as you all know, by 1% on the employer side. And the locality is not currently subject to retirement. So it's not part of the permanent wage of a teacher. And so it is subject to 23.86% retirement. So about almost a quarter of the cost of the actual locality is going to be a retirement cost for the district. So the goal of these increases, so it's actually about a $5,000 increase to a teacher salary from where we were at the beginning of the year to where we want to be and where we believe that will track the highest quality teachers to Beaufort County. When teachers come to our district or teachers graduate from colleges throughout the state, they look at these base teacher salary schedules and they compare them. I had a staff member who's actually here today, and she was a teacher coming out of college in the 1990s, late 90s, and she was graduating from college in the upstate. She looked at the teacher salary schedule and found she was expecting to go teach in the upstate area, stay in that area, but found that Beaufort at the time was the first, ranked first in terms of the starting teacher salary. So she moved to Beaufort and still is with us today. So our goal is to put us back in first place of the race. It's a race where everyone's constantly maneuvering. It's a moving target. So Greenville and York 4 will be moving up by 2,000, I'm anticipating. But we need to get to be the first in the state so that we can be competitive and we will have the first pick of teachers to help us with the 300 teachers that we're hiring each year. So the budget by category is broken down in three main areas. The total expenditures that we're seeing are 71% instruction and instructional support. So the direct school-based positions that are supporting either teachers or are supporting our teachers. Leadership and other, these would be our principals and assistant principals and district staff. And operations, the energy costs, the custodial, the maintenance, the facilities, all of those things are built into the $53 million to total budget of $298 million. So 8.7% of this increase, this budget is an 8.7% increase, which 79% will go directly to compensation of teachers and other school district employees. Projected revenues are summarized here. As you can see, 60% of our revenues come from local taxes. Those are the property taxes, and majority from non-owner occupied residences or businesses and vehicles. Local, our state revenues make up about 35%. And so that's $105 million. That comes directly, that includes the funds that are redirected to the state level and redistributed back to the school district, such as the property tax relief. And then a little bit of federal revenue coming in the form of impact aid, our military connected schools and E-rate funds. And then our transfers in of 12 million are primarily EIA, state EIA funds, special revenue that are transferred in on a quarterly basis. So in this budget, we're proposing an additional 4 mills to help support the increased cost of teacher salaries. The school district is able to pay for approximately 50% of that increased cost, and we are requesting an additional 4 mills, proposing an additional 4 mills to include to cover the costs of the increases. So proposed increases broken down by categories here. You see 19 million for compensation increases. That it makes up 80% of the increases in this budget. There's some school staffing allocations. There are 24 additional positions net of decreases and increases. We have one side of the county that's growing and rapidly. The Bluffton area continues to grow in enrollment by approximately 400 students per year, while other areas of the county are either flat or a slight decline. And so overall, we continue to grow by about 100 students a year this year, projected. Additionally, operational increases of about $1 million. And charter school increases. Charter school, our one charter school that is district sponsored is their revenues are based on the state formula that requires us to do a per pupil share, and the increased cost according to that formula is 2.3 million. So we do have some decreases as well, and some others are netted, and operational has some increases and decreases that we've shown. They are net here, and so in the details that I'm going to provide you, you will see some of that belt tightening sort of maneuvers to either reduce some of the requests in district operational budgets, and there are some utilizing special revenue funds to their fullest. So either ESSER funds or special revenue funds as well. So the subtotal of the increases in this budget is $24 million. So being one of the largest employers in Beaufort County, we do have, it is a sizable budget with the sizable needs as well. So the current operations millage is 121.6. The proposed increase would bring us to 125.6. And there is no increase requested or proposed for the debt service millage fund or debt service fund. Impact on the taxpayer, I have two scenarios here, $250,000 and a $400,000. These would be a non-owner occupied residence, subject to a 6% assessment ratio. 4 additional mills on a $250,000 home would be about $60 per year increase. $400,000 home would be in the neighborhood of $96 per year increase. And again, these are non-owner occupied. homes, and then businesses and motor vehicles, businesses have other assessment ratios as well. But these rates are not applicable to primary homeowners, as you know, because they are exempt from school operations taxes in South Carolina. So again, I mentioned this earlier, the total teacher pay increase cost is $11.3 million. So that happens to be, when calculating the mills, and near the end of the game just a few days ago, I was thinking how much of the new mills the new revenues that we're asking for are as a percentage of the teacher pay increase. And it actually ended up being exactly 50%. So basically we're funding the existing, we're funding the half of those increases with existing local, state, and federal revenues. And we are proposing $4 million increase to fund the remaining $5.7 million of the increases. And so our budget schedule, we have, the board is seeing the budget in its final reading tomorrow evening. So the board has not yet certified and approved this budget. We will be doing that, anticipated to do that tomorrow at tomorrow's board meeting. And so by the time of third reading, we will have an approved budget to bring back next Monday. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Crosby. Any questions from anybody? Just speak up. I cannot. Mr. Hervershawn, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the presentation. 2 questions. Number 1, what is the current and projected cost per student? And then number 2, that bar chart that you showed that has the rankings by county of teacher pay. I'd be curious to see if we could get that in consideration of neighboring counties and neighboring states, like for instance, Savannah, Charlotte, those types of areas.
The starting teacher salary?
Yeah, like what that looks like in the context of neighboring cities, counties, states.
Right. I do have 2 states with me. So the Georgia, the minimum teacher salary in Georgia is $44,500. And the North Carolina starting teacher salary was in the neighborhood of $36,000, I believe. So there was a big difference between the 2 neighboring counties. And I'll see if I can find it here in just a moment. But I don't have the per pupil expenditure with me. We can certainly calculate that and send it over to the council,
Yes,
at least by tomorrow.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
I
have a question and a comment. I think we're all aware of the affordable housing lack of that we don't have available, the inventory. The hospital is offering, Beaufort Memorial Hospital, as you may know, is offering incentives for housing, including first-time buyers. Have you included anything like that in this budget for incentives for first-time home buyers? It's a repayable loan is what they're doing, Beaufort Memorial is.
No, ma'am, we don't currently have anything for housing in the operating budget.
Well, hopefully when we move forward with other things countywide, and we can look at the housing trust fund as with incentives for those kind of things. You said that that you're not having enough students coming out of colleges in South Carolina to do what's the highest state that we're attracting teachers from? Do you have any idea? I mean, who's moving here? Because we don't have enough coming
Ms.
out of
in our recruiting office.
Yes.
So, hi, I'm Jill McCadden, and I'm the proud recruiter for the Beaufort County School District. I would say from a state perspective, I would say Pennsylvania and Ohio. I must say USCB is our strongest hold as far as getting people in the door right out of the gate. On celebrations, as of today, we've held 3 job fairs in virtually that we posted. We've attended over 52 job fairs, and we've hired 168 teachers. That's a celebration.
It's great.
A challenge is, as of the moment I left the office, and this could have changed by now, we have 169 to hire before teachers report to school August the 8th. We're in a crisis.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I've got two questions for you. Hopefully they're simple. So when looking at your thing, what was the value of the mill that you put on there to get to your amount?
1,418,000 approximately. So 1.4 million.
So that's the value of the mill.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then if the state legislature did increase the salaries to 38 or to 40, how does that change the current salaries you're offering now?
They have no impact on the proposed budget that we have. It's actually, if we are above 38 or 40, we are not required to recruit to go the full 4 or 2,000. Our proposal actually goes above both of those proposals.
Thank you all. For anyone else before we let them go? And as usual, I think you're used to the routine now, Ms. Crosby, is that we're going to ask you to show up at our next council meeting, because that's whenever everyone seems to have some questions regarding your budget. So if you wouldn't mind, please make yourself available for that.
I will certainly do that, and I will bring folks along with me that are able and willing to come as well.
That'd be wonderful.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming, Mr.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Sarah, so the school district has provided you with everything that you've needed from them for your...
Yes, sir. I think we're waiting for the ordinance after they certify their budget tomorrow night.
Well, you are the main attraction here. So number 15, recommend approval of an ordinance to make appropriations for county government special purpose districts for Beaufort County for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. So our budget director, Ms. Harriet, it's
I'm sure we've heard enough about numbers today, so I'll try to make this brief. We have simply updated our budget presentation based on some of the feedback we received from our last 2 budget workshops. So, so a couple of the budget goals that we had set based on our retreat in November and throughout our budget workshops was to implement a 5% COLA. Originally, it was going to be July 1, but we were able to pull it off a little earlier this year. Prepare a 3-year capital improvement plan, which is basically the first 3 years of the comprehensive plan that was recently approved. And then we worked with HR to get an accurate FTE count for the fiscal year 23 budget process. Of course, the main goal was to remain mill neutral for fiscal year 2023. And of course, as Hayes mentioned a little while ago, that we were trying to address some of our deferred capital needs that we have we've kind of looked past for the past couple of years, not knowing what COVID was going to bring. So we have, I'm going to repeat it and just show you again what the estimated value of a mill was that based on our real and personal property numbers and figures that we got from the assessor's office and the auditor's office. Again, it's an increase of $116,000 per mill value. It's a little over 5%, generated a little extra revenue for us for fiscal year 23. All right, general fund, big picture. This number looked really different last time you saw it, but we have decided to change some things up. Hayes touched on a lot of this a little while ago. So we have shifted around some of our revenue since we saw a mill value increase. And as of right now, as of today, we have a surplus of a little over $1,300, not a whole lot, but we have decided to implement some other things this year. These are just some updated numbers based on what you saw at the last 2 budget workshops to reflect some of the additional changes that we made to the fiscal year 23 budget. So our revenues based on our government type of collection. And that there is our general fund expenditures. Of course, these are just the functions of government. You all received in your backup line item details for every fund that we have. I'm sure that was some wonderful reading. But if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, just going over some of the things that we decided to include in this year's budget. We haven't I think for the past couple of years, we've only allowed new position requests for the public safety function, but this year we're kind of letting some of the other requests flow through our budget. Of course, we've got the coroner's request in here, and we've got some other department requests and Parks and Rec as well. Here's some vehicle and equipment requests that we have included in fiscal year 23's budget. Some of these are some of the things that we have kind of deferred on purchasing in the last couple budget cycles. So we have included them. Numbers a little bit higher than what you saw previously. That's because we've added some things for some of our new programs that we have incorporated in the next fiscal year. A quick overview of our other funds. The very first one you'll see is a capital improvement fund. I have a little bit more of a detailed slide about that coming up in a couple of slides, but updated numbers for our special revenue funds. Those have gone up, of course, to reflect our ARPA funding that we received last year or earlier this year. Our capital project funds, our debt service funds, which will look drastically different next year, and our garage internal service fund. Any questions so far? All right, here's a little bit more information for our capital improvement fund. Hayes's slide and fund balance presentation touched on this a little bit earlier. Due to the extra revenue and surplus that we've had, we decided to use, as he showed you earlier, a little over $9 million from the fiscal year 21 general fund surplus. And then also, if you look at your ordinance, we shifted $1 million over to the capital improvement plan. We reduced operations by $1 million. We increased our capital improvement fund millage. Was previously 0.6 mils. This year, we decided to increase that to 1.6 mils. Obviously, a lot of that is due to the fact that we've seen a growth in our value of a mill. And obviously, we have a surplus that we can work with. These are some of the projects that we have included in the capital improvement fund for next fiscal year. A lot of these things are things that we've deferred for several years. We want to try to address them. Obviously, ADA modifications are important for our facilities. We are planning to do the EMS headquarters planning and design. We're going to install some pole barns for public works. We have a new public works complex that we are planning and design for. We have, as Hayes touched on this, we kind of have the same list, but lots of Parks and Rec improvements that we need to accomplish in the next, hopefully in the next fiscal year. All of the capital equipment requests that you saw previously are also in this fund. We have some equipment out at mosquito control that needs to be housed properly. And then Public Works is requesting a fuel truck for distributing fuel throughout the county. And we also have an inoperable garage bay door that needs to be fixed and used in our garage. And then one of these is for the generator at Buckwalter, where our National Guard is normally housed during a natural disaster. So we need that type of equipment out there at Parks and Rec. These are some of the other vehicle and equipment requests from the other funds. We've got some replacement vans that we kind of overlooked or postponed for the past couple of years, and some equipment that needs, or vehicles that need to be replaced in stormwater, and then a couple of trucks for the Hilton Head Island Airport. Here's a summary of all of our enterprise funds. You've got your Beaufort Executive Airport, your Hilton Head Island, and our solid waste, which we broke out last year to an enterprise fund, and of course our stormwater utility fund. All right, I said I would make this quick. You guys have heard enough about numbers today. Obviously, the next steps are first reading for the budget ordinance is next Monday, and then the 13th and the 27th for third and final reading. I am open to take any questions from council.
Any questions from council?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Is this presentation you've made, where you've placed so many of these together, does that include the submission from the solicitor's office?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. In fiscal year 20, council funded a pilot project. I don't know if you were here then or not, with the agreement of that office to hire attorneys to prosecute DUI cases in Beaufort and Bluffton.
We funded the project at about $189,000 a year, increasing the budget in each of those fiscal years, 20, 21, and 22. And the solicitor received $567,000 over those years. Despite this funding over the past 3 years, as of this past Friday, there are presently 344 cases in a backlog of driving under the influence that are awaiting disposition in Beaufort County Magistrates Court, some of those cases dating back to 2019. It's apparent to me that this pilot project we funded is not working as intended. I think it's time we defund the project and search for an alternative that will reduce the backlog of cases pending in Magistrates Court. Suggestions as to how to achieve this goal is certainly welcome from the solicitor's office. But with the solicitor's overall budget request at the same amount as last year, he's requested only $73,000 for DUI cases, which is a reduction of $116,000. However, his total request is still the same as it was in the past 3 fiscal years. So I'm at a loss to explain what happened to the funds we provided during the past 3 fiscal years that were there to support this pilot project and were to result in a team of attorneys dedicated to assisting law enforcement officers in addressing this important issue. But I believe the budget should be adjusted here, and that we should defund this pilot project and perhaps reduce that budget request by the amount we were funding it over the past 3 years, which is $189,000 a year, and that we should continue to search for a program that will produce positive results in addressing DUI cases in Beaufort County. I haven't even asked about the other cases in the other 4 counties in our district, because we only made the arrangement with the solicitor for prosecutions in the Magistrates Court in Beaufort and in Bluffton. But having a backlog of 344 cases, with some going back as far as 2019, pretty much indicates to me that this program's been a failure.
All right, I don't think that's something that Ms. Harriet can answer, and would have to get the solicitor to answer those questions. So, Mr. McKellen, I think at this point, what we're doing here today is looking at trying to move the budget forward, and obviously council would have to vote on this 3 times. So I would think that we could ask the solicitor to come to the next council meeting, and during our council meeting, we can ask him those same questions and have time to prepare his answer. Because I do remember whenever you and I both first came on council and we approved that extra money that we had. So, I mean, any other comments regarding that from either staff or from anyone else on council? All right, Larry, would that be an acceptable alternative to what we're, okay, all right, good.
Yeah, I think that we just have to present this to the full council at an assemblage, and perhaps at the first reading, it would be a good idea to do that. And then we can seek some answers before we get to the 3rd reading to see if any adjustments need to be made, or if an alternative program can be discussed and developed, because this issue has to be addressed by somebody somewhere. And apparently it's not being addressed if we can have a backlog that large over a 3-year period.
So knowing Mr. McCollum's going to bring that up the next council meeting, we can ask that the solicitor's office can be there to then address some of these questions.
We will make the request, but Deputy County Administrator Richland is also aware and familiar with the situation, and she'll be able to elaborate and give detailed counsel whenever you all feel it's appropriate.
Okay. I think that as opposed to doing it today, I think it'd be better if we did give the solicitor a chance then to be here to speak for himself, as opposed to.
It would, and it would be also more beneficial, I think, if we had the full council here. Yes. So that they can hear the discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't suggesting anyone would take any action today. I would just like to have this looked at and considered and reviewed as we move through these 3 readings.
I was looking as a motion, Larry, so that's why I was kind of waiting for someone to second it. So, okay, we're good.
No. I'm just bringing it up as an item for some discussion and further consideration.
And obviously, if there's other places in our budget that we need to bring people forward, we need to know those. Any other questions with any other department that hasn't come forward to us, so they can be prepared and we can be ready for them as well. So if there's any other requests out there, I mean, obviously get that to myself or Sarah or Mr. Greenway, and we'll be able to then address those
right now, we're only aware of one other situation potentially with the public defender's office, but we'll work through that and we will have details for that at first reading on Monday as well.
All right. So any other questions regarding our budget? And, obviously today, what we're looking at doing is this committee moving it forward to first reading for county council. And we saw the timeline that this has to be done by the end of June. Obviously, that we need to get this through. So is there anything else for Ms. Harriet?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Yeah, York, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mr. Glover.
Thank you. I just want to go on record to say I support Larry's position at this time. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. And like I said, if there's anything else, I mean, Mr. Green, we mentioned the public defender's office. If there's anything else out there that we need to get answers on, we need to know now before the first reading so that we can follow up, get the information needed or have them come and be there in person to answer those questions that are going to be tough questions. All right, so if there's no other questions on our budget, we're looking then to have someone make a motion to push this forward to full council.
I'll make a motion to move this to full council.
And Mr. Robin has made the second. Is there any objections out there? All right, seeing no objection, we will again move this forward to council for first reading. Thank you, Ms. Harriet.
All right, thank you.
All right, and then the only thing else that I've got is the fact that I know that we have our need of board assessment appeals, people that would like to be on committees for those. So that is not district specific. So if we do have anybody in the county that would like to consider that, they can get a hold of us, Sarah, or any else at the staff here and see what that entails and see how much time it would be. But again, we do need folks. For some reason, we've had a vacancy of those, but we are officially adjourned and we will reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you. Still.